Work with me for just a moment. Imagine the scenario. Inside your organization, everyone has been brought together in the town hall meeting. There's a whisper of anticipation of something new about to happen. And as everyone gathers, the CEO walks onto the stage and the music starts to play. The CEO looks out to the audience and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've invited you here today for the launch of our new strategy. It will be a strategy that is not only good for each and every one of you, but it will be good for our customers and good for our stakeholders. But I alone can't make it happen. I need each and every one of you to come together, not just as a team, not just as a department, but as a family. Because only as a family can we make our strategy come alive." And he turns to the audience and he says, "Are you with me?" And everyone shouting, "Yes," and cheering and clapping. And as the music starts to fade out, two guys at the back of the room turn to each other and go, "What was all that about? I don't know, but there's a free breakfast. Let's go and get something to eat." On any given day, somewhere in the world, there's a CEO launching a new strategy. But after all the fanfare and excitement, what percentage of digital strategies are successfully implemented? More are failing than succeeding. For the last 21 years, I've been researching the field of strategy implementation, and I was delighted to see a continuous improvement until just a few years ago when there was a spike. And when we analyzed the research, we discovered that 84% of digital implementations are failing. My name is Speculand. I'm a global pioneer and specialist in strategy and digital implementation. And it's my pleasure to be joining your conference from my home here today in Singapore. Over the last 20 years, my company Bridges has focused on strategy implementation. And in 2015, we were fortunate enough to be working with one of the world's best banks and one of the biggest luxury companies in the world who were both adopting digital. And we noticed that implementing digital was very different to implementing previous or traditional strategies. And in the short time I have with you today, I will share with you what we've learned. But my goal is also to shake up some of your thinking. Why? Because if we're failing 84% of the time at something, then we have to change our thinking and what we're doing. So why is it failing so often? The top 3 reasons are: it's about changing your culture. There's so much going on within digitalization that when you implement it, you have to rethink and relook at your culture in many, if not most, organizations. The second reason, not in any order, is the leader's mindset. Leaders want to implement digitalization, but they still operate in a traditional manner. And that disconnect can cause the whole implementation to fail. And the third is that it's a whole business model transformation. Before, not every strategy required you to change your whole business model. Digitalization does. which means you're blowing up the way that you've traditionally worked. Now, when I'm fortunate enough to be in front of an audience and I see their reaction to this, typically they're either panicking and hitting the panic button, or they see it as an opportunity for new success. Which are you? For me, it's an opportunity. We're at the time when we're literally reinventing the way businesses run, which for me is tremendously exciting. But I want to kick off with one very important message. It's not about having a digital strategy in your organization. No. It's about having a strategy in a digital world. And the difference between those two statements is critical for success. It's not about looking inner, it's about recognizing what's going on around in this very turbulent times across the world, where our strategic landscape is rapidly changing, moving. And looking external and appreciating everything that's going on. But with the work I do with different organizations, when I approach them and they're already starting to roll out digital, many of them feel that they're in a tunnel with no light and it's dark all around them because there's so much going on and they don't know what to do. Well, I'm here to share the good news that there is light at the end of the tunnel. 2-3 years ago, we published a white paper called The State of Digital, and we researched over 1,800 leaders in North America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. And from the research, we identified what was working and what was not. And one of the key things we discovered was that leaders were struggling because there was no model to guide them through the journey or to the light at the end of the tunnel. Last year, I published the Digital Implementation Playbook with my business partner, Jeremy. And at the heart of the playbook is the model for your success. So how do you start implementing digital? Well, first, there are 3 strategic stages. The first one is being future thinking. The leaders consider what is the impact of digital on their market, their customers, their business. Where are the biggest opportunities? Where do they need to invest? Where does the CapEx go initially? The second strategic stage is around centricity and redefining your business model around the culture, the customers, and the way you operate. So you have to look at the impact of digitalization on these key areas. And the third strategic stage is being future ready. We're working faster than we've ever worked before, but we'll never work this slowly again. So you constantly have to be prepared for tomorrow. Now, these are the 3 strategic stages, but it still doesn't tell you how to implement. There are 11 operational steps. And here they are. And let me take you through them. The shape is in the form of a ticking clock. And there are 11 steps because if you're waiting for the 12th, it's too late. Because we're moving so fast. It's like the atomic clock. So, the first step in the operations is under being in your future thinking. And this involves very much the leaders crafting a digital purpose. What do you want to achieve with this? With the bank that I mentioned earlier in Singapore, their digital purpose was to make banking joyful. Now, you don't think banking and joyful, but that was their goal. They leveraged technology to take the pain out of banking. The second step is developing the leader's mindset. As I mentioned, one of the top 3 reasons why it fails is because leaders don't change the way they're thinking and operating. And this is critical for success. Then we move in to looking at the business model. And stage 3 is the re-architecture of the whole organization, looking at the technology specifically. And this is where much of the CapEx initial investment will go. As you start to look at Agile, DevOps, you speed up your technology cadence. You move to market faster. You start to build ecosystems and platforms through open APIs. In the 4th of 11 operational steps, we start to restructure for a data-first culture. This means decisions are now not just guesswork, but based on fact. We're now leveraging and analyzing using data visualization. Step 5 is looking to protect your customers' trust. It's critical this is built in from the beginning. It's not a question of if you will be hacked, but when. And you have to have in the systems to identify when you are hacked and how to protect. Step 6 is becoming customer obsessed. In the last few years, we've gone from customer service to customer experience to now truly being obsessed. And we use things like design thinking, jobs to be done, pain points, to really map out the journey of our customers and then leverage the technology to improve. Step 7 of the 11 operational steps is adopting Agile. Not just in the technology division, but across the organization. As you start to have 20-minute stand-up meetings, breaking down the silos so that operations and business and everyone, supports as well, can come together to operate. And using the tools and techniques of Agile, we're able to work faster, respond quicker. But they are all connected. So for example, I was working with one organization who was struggling to adopt Agile because they didn't have a unifying purpose. And every department was trying to achieve a different goal. So when they came together in scrums, they were failing because everyone had a different agenda. In step 8, we have to learn to experiment and co-create. To experiment means you have to have a culture where people will fail before they succeed. And when they do fail, they can't be punished, because you have to recognize that failure is part of the journey to innovation. So we create a culture of what we call psychological safety, where people put up their hand and say, let's try, or I don't know how to do that, or can you explain? Because we're now living very much in a business world of experimentation and innovation. In step 9, we need to empower our employees. You will fail if your employees are not empowered. Why? Because they are the ones in the hackathons, in the design thinking, doing the data analytics. And if they can't take action, then you won't move forward. If they have to go and wait for approval from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as many different leaders as it takes, or ask for budgets, or fight through the bureaucracy, you're going to fail. In step 10, we move to the 3rd strategic stage. And now we make sure we have the right measures in place. Because when you implement digital, the measures change. For example, we've never measured before the speed at which we're moving, or our scalability, or the revenue from digital. So new measures are required. And in the final stage, those measures now give us prescriptive analytics, which allow us to test and prepare the strategy for tomorrow. These are what make up the ticking clock, the 3 strategic and 11 operational stages. And as you look at them, how many are leaders good at today? Well, what we've discovered is of the 11 operational, they're only good at 2. The faded ones. All the others are new, which is why it's so challenging. The ticking clock model guides you through your digital implementation. And I know that with so many presentations today, half an hour after I finish, you've already forgotten half of what I said. So if anything resonated, I'll give you a couple of areas that you can find more information. But if there's one key message I ask you to remember, it's that customers don't notice your strategy, they notice the implementation. And the ticking clock model guides you through to make your implementation a success. If you would like any other information, one of my other companies, I run the Strategy Implementation Institute, which is an online resource for learning about implementation and digital. And I have many other resources, as well as my new book called The World's Best Bank, coming out at the end of May this year. Have a wonderful experience on the conference and take one action to implement from every presentation, and you'll accelerate your success into digitalization.